that's good actually. So blossom the sun.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
How are you doing?
All set?
Good to see you. Okay, so do you have one of these guys?
No, I don't really need it actually.
So you're not going to run the PowerPoint?
I'm not going to run the PowerPoint. I decided after going through and rewriting some of the stuff based on some of the stuff you told me actually.
Yeah.
I decided to take a slightly different angle.
Okay.
And I decided to talk
according to the program schedule, we'll have an indigenous drum group.
Okay.
We'll have the elder do a prayer, greetings. Then you'll be introduced and you would come in.
Okay.
So we think you
do
would
the
come
introduction?
in. No, someone, a student.
Okay. They have the. They have the.
You got a bio printed.
Okay, good. I told them to print it up because
this one.
I don't understand why you didn't get it open.
I couldn't open it on my phone, but this one.
Oh, okay. Good. That's the one. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so right now we'll get the drummers. We'll get an indigenous drum group together with it.
Good stuff.
And then
I can sit somewhere down.
Yeah, you can sit right with the.
Yeah.
Have you met?
I met Alice.
How about the mayor?
And Mayor, not yet. Is Albert? Albert's. Okay. Good. Let's meet him. Is there anybody else I need to know? I'm going to do my little. I'm going to do a little thank you thing.
Mayor.
Okay, I got you there. Alice. Sure. How are you?
So Mayor, very important.
Yeah.
And the president.
So,
There's a VP here.
The VP here? But we have the dean is here too?
A few days at the back.
Okay,
So
all right.
just VPs and deans, the leaders, college leaders.
College leaders are here. Okay, good.
Let me introduce.
Sure. Okay. Great. Just wanted to meet you.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Ben Akwe, and welcome to our keynote speech for Black History Month. And we will get started shortly. We will start off with an indigenous drum group and a prayer, and then Dr. Alice Wainwright will present her greetings. So will His Worship Mayor Gerald Albers, and then we'll have our keynote speaker introduced, and then we'll have our keynote speech. Right now, we're just waiting for a few moments. We'll get you guys the programs very shortly, and then our indigenous drum group will take the stage and perform. So we think we'll be starting in a few minutes. So enjoy the conversations with yourselves, and we'll be with you very shortly. Hello, everyone. Elder Leona Carter would lead us in prayer, and she has advised that the Indigenous Drum Group will perform at the end of our function today. So instead of performing at the beginning, they will perform at the end. And therefore, now it gives me great pleasure to invite up here Elder Leona Carter to lead us in a prayer.
Thank you, Ben. Asamina nanas como nasa minuta e pewi te hoian. Tunin nimietene e ben domgawian istuta ka pe piks koyan ka pe ai mihayan ka pe aya nanas kumoyan. Ik say some mietaman manas konista ka wi te hoian. I just said I wanted to thank everyone for being here and thank you for inviting me to come and speak, say the prayers this morning. So I've been presented with tobacco by Ben, and the presentation of tobacco is to say the prayer. I've accepted the tobacco, so that means that I have to follow through now. So I will say the prayer in my language, which is Cree, and follow along with me in your own way. We usually pray from the heart, but most of the times we just also honor our ancestors who have passed on. We honor our elders who are here with us today. We honor the children that are with us and all of our friends and family, and to give us an open mind for what we are attempting to do here today. So with that, I will say the prayer in Cree, and like I said, pray along with me in your own way. Haugo tawino, mustaina naskumo no manos, asami nagutak pematsi wene miyak, mustahi goy pewapa tihiya ke mia siguma. How na naskumon, eksipunga gagi tuanoma, e miasik. Ego kimusum panuak, kokum panuak, wista ta kapewita pumgako, kapesitos kagoyako, wista agigway, kamiasini, kakskino magoyako. Ego pugite gehte kayatik, kasagi hitik, kues kaganoimitik, kues kamiotutatik, is dotamagis tamoge. Awasak mina pugite gayatik, kasagi hitik, kaktik egaigun tagakti mahitik, kues kes pamnitik, is dotamagis tamoge. Ego pugite gayatik, wahumaganok, wisto, kaktimagimitik, kasawimitik, is dotamagis tamoge. Ego mano sutaga mamo paya, how pewiti hinan, kesin stohtatuya, kesin dotamayan, kesin miwiti tuya, eugumina, isin dotamagis tamogik, kahkio mutagapia, exapungaituan, hai. So that was a prayer in Cree, and I don't just pray, I also usually speak to whatever the occasion I invited to have a few words about it. And I want to say how greatly I'm very grateful to be here today and to celebrate Black History Month with all of you. There's just so much to celebrate. You know, I think Creator put us on earth with all of our differences. And our job in this life is to learn to get along with each other. And I believe that's our challenge that the Creator gave us. You know, how do we get along? How do we appreciate each other? The gifts that we all come with. Every person that comes from whatever part of the world has gifts, and we've all shared in that. But today I do want to honor some of the inventions that the Black people, the Native American Black people have contributed to building our society. Quite often we don't acknowledge or we don't recognize who's done what in our society, particularly when it's Indigenous or Black people. We never acknowledge them. And the North Americas would not have happened had it not been for the contributions of Indigenous people. We've allowed the stolen lands to be built on. Black people in their slavery, they built this land So between the indigenous people and the black people, you know, we wouldn't have America as it is today. You know, I really truly believe that. But I do want to say a few things that we use in everyday life to be thankful for that was, you know, invented by black people. If ever, you know, you're ever in the States, there is a museum, a black museum of inventors. You need to look into that. You would be amazed at the contributions that black people have made to North America. You know, how many have folding cabinet beds? You know, those kind of Murphy beds, those were created by black people. Potato chips, gas masks, protective mailboxes, a blood bank, ironing boards, home security systems, the three-way traffic lights, refrigerator trucks, automatic elevator doors, electric microphones, colored IBM PC monitors and the gigahertz chips, tissue holders, peanut butter, automatic gear shift, laser phaco. Patricia Bath, an ophthalmologist, invented that for removing cataracts, and you know, led to laser surgery that we say today now. Clothes dryers, folding chairs, dustpan, golf tees, ice cream scooper, lawnmower, lawn sprinklers, modern toilets that we use today, the mop, reversible baby strollers, airplane propellers, coin changer, rotary engine, car coupler, letterbox, stainless steel pads, central heating system in 1919 to use gas for heating in homes. And women computer programmers who sent the first rocket to the moon in 1962. They were all black women. The GPS global system by Gladys May West, a black woman who was a mathematician. How many of us would be lost without our GPS? How many of that we use on a daily basis? You know, and that was a black woman created that. Paul Williams, he was a prolific black architect from who worked in Hollywood mostly. He designed all of the homes in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, all the very ritzy areas, you know, so his work stands out in Southern California. And the amazing thing about him is his clients were all white people. They would not sit beside him so that he could show them his designs. So what he learned to do is, I think this is just incredibly amazing, how kind of a mind he had. He drew upside down. So his clients would sit across the table from him and he would draw upside down so that they could see his designs. I think that is so incredibly amazing, you know, and we quite often we don't acknowledge these kinds of things. Who built the White House in the United States? Again, it was black people who built the White House. There are many, many things in North America that the black people have contributed to building our society as we see it today. But quite often we don't acknowledge or we don't recognize. Why is that? You know, we need to start celebrating all of our contributions, you know, whether it be black people, Chinese people, whatever, but we really need to acknowledge everyone. And like I said, Creator put us here. That's our test, is how do we get along in the world with each other? And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Elder Leona Carter. At this point, it's my pleasure to invite up here Dr. Alice Wainwright Stewart to bring greetings from the college. Please give it up for Alice.
Thank you, Ben, and hello. I'm glad that you are with us today to honor Black History Month. Black History Month is a time to celebrate achievements and contributions of Black Canadians. We just heard some powerful words from our elder who identified some of the contributions that have been made to North America. Thank you for doing that, Leona. And what we're trying to do today and throughout the month is really to try to think about honor the achievements and think about the struggles that our Black Canadians have gone through. And this time is an important time for reflection about equality, diversity, and inclusiveness, qualities that I support and encourage each and every day here at Lakeland College. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Knight to Lakeland College, and I want to thank you for sharing your story with us, Dr. Knight. And on behalf of the college, I want to thank everyone that's come together for this event and the events to come to recognize our Black History Month. And I invite all of you to participate in the various events that are planned throughout February. Together, we continue to cultivate an environment of inclusive and belongings here at Lakeland College. Enjoy the chat today, and thank you again for attending.
Thank you very much, President Alice. And now it's a wonderful pleasure to invite up here His Worship Mayor Gerard Albers.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome everyone to the celebration of Black History Month, a time to reflect on the contributions of Black people in Canada and their communities. On behalf of my council colleagues, I extend the warmest greetings to you all and extend a special thank you to Lakeland President and CEO, Dr. Alice Wainwright-Stewart, and today's honored guest, Dr. Andy Knight, Professor of International Relations in Political Science Department at the University of Alberta. This year, the theme of Black History Month, as designated by Heritage Canada, is Ours to Tell. For some, this theme highlights the importance of telling your successes, sacrifices, and triumphs. For others, such as myself, it's an opportunity to engage in open dialogue and commit to learning more about Black communities in Canada and their stories. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the immense contributions of Black Canadians to our country and world, as noted by the Elder. From the arts and sciences to politics and sports, Black people in Canada have left an indelible mark on our history. They have fought for their rights, challenged the status quo, and inspired others to do the same. Their courage and determination have paved the way for future generations and have helped to create a better world for all of us. One of the most inspiring aspects of Black History Month is the way it celebrates the achievements of ordinary people. We are reminded that everyone can make a difference, no matter their background or circumstances. This spirit of resilience, hope, and determination has driven people of color to succeed, even in the face of tremendous obstacles. Lloydminster has a rich and diverse history, and we're proud to be home to a vibrant and growing Black community. Through their contributions to our city, Black Canadians have helped shape our culture, social, and economic landscape, and we are grateful for their presence and participation in our community. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from Professor Knight. His insights and perspectives will be a valuable addition to our celebration, and we are grateful for his willingness to share his knowledge and expertise with us. In conclusion, I would like to express my deep gratitude to all those who have made this celebration possible today, and to all of you for joining this morning. Let us continue to work together to build a more inclusive and equitable society where everyone can reach the full potential and contribute to our collective success. And let us remember that your stories, your experiences, your histories are yours to tell and ours to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That was awesome. And now I have the pleasure of introducing the student who would formally invite Professor Knight to speak. Patrick Muhumure Muhoza was born in Mulenge in the Democratic Republic of Congo and later migrated to Uganda in 2007, where he completed his primary education from grades 1 to 5. And in the winter of 2013, with his family, relocated to Saskatchewan, where he continued his education from grade 6 to 8 at Ecole Vickers and Arthur Pitchley. He successfully graduated from the Carleton Comprehensive High School in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan in 2019. He enrolled at Lakeland College in the fall of 2019 and pursued General Business Diploma. Many of you would know Patrick as a key member of our soccer team for the past 3 years. He has received his diploma, and because he loves the community so much, he is now working towards his Bachelor of Management degree program through Athabasca University. And in that program, he is in his final semester. And we couldn't be prouder to have Patrick Muhoza do this introduction for us. So please give it up for the one and only Muhumure Patrick Muhoza.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Before I start to introduce Dr. Andy Knight, I want to lead you guys into a chart, which goes, when I say Black History Month, I want you guys to say Hours to Tell. Black History Month? Thank you very much. Dr. Andy Knight is a professor of international relations and political science department at the University of Alberta and the past chair of the department. He's the former director of Institution of International Relations, the University of Western Indies, Trinidad and Tobago, and a co-founder of the former head of the co-former head of the Diplomatic Academy of the Caribbean. He served as a co-editor in the chair of African Security Journal and International Journal, both globally prestigious reviewed publications. And he's established the Caribbean Journal of International Relations and Diplomacy in 2013. During his secondment in the Caribbean, Professor Knight was co-editor of another highly recommended award-winning journal, Global Governance, from 2000 to 2005. A fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, he was named by the Venture magazine among Alberta's top 50 most influential people and the Black Business of Professional Association of Canada, the Henry Jumel Trailblazer. He served as an advisory board member of the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on the Wealth of the Children. He was the director of both of the Peace and Post-Conflict Studies Certificate Programming and Office of Interdisciplinary Studies. In March 2007, Dr. Knight was appointed by the Canadian Foreign Minister to the Board of Governors of the International Development Research Center and served in the position until 2011. He was appointed Distinguished Professor of the University of Alberta in 2021 and 2021 to 2022 Fulbright Distinguished Chair in the International Area of Studies at the Yale University. He currently holds the position of inaugural Provost Fellow, Black excellence and leadership at the University of Alberta, and in that position, he's helping to put flesh on the bones of equity, diversity, and inclusivity. Thank you very much. Welcome to Lakeland, Dr. Knight.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much, Patrick. And thank you all for coming to hear me speak today. I'm delighted actually to be able to present to you my thoughts about how we can sort of tell our stories, especially at a time that many people are trying to ban us from telling our stories. You've probably heard about the governor of Florida, DeSantis, and the attempt to sort of stop any talks about Black lived experience. And I think it's time for us to sort of push back a little bit on that. Because as the elder pointed out, you know, we have actually seen major accomplishments by people in the Black community for many years now. And I'm glad that she was able to give that list, which I hope I should get from her. That list, that great list of inventions and so on that Black people have actually been responsible for. So let me get my talk together here. First of all, I just wanted to say a big thank you to the people who are responsible for me being here today. I know it's not going to be easy to remember every single person, but I want to just thank Dean Brad Romanchek, is he here today? I want to thank Todd Sumner, your president, Dr. Alice Wainwright. Thanks to Charlene Robinson for her great hospitality during the course of this morning. The technical staff that's making sure that we are able to broadcast this to the other campus, Jamel and Liam. I hope you can hear me loud and clear in the Vermilion campus because we want to reach out to you as well. Special thanks to Benakea, who actually drove me up all the way from Edmonton here today. And also I think was largely responsible for making sure that this event happened. So very special thanks to you. And of course, last but not least, we want to welcome the Mayor, Lloydminster, His Worship, Mayor Albers, and all the deans and the other faculty members that are here in the Central Administration. Thank you all for gracing us with your presence. Now, good evening, good day, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a real pleasure for me to speak to you about Black History Month, particularly because I think this is your first time you're having an event of this sort during Black History Month. We have come a long way since 1926, when the celebration of the achievements of Black people was reserved for 1 week in February. And it was called Negro Week, Negro History Week in the United States. And we have to thank Carter G. Woodson. We have to thank him for the establishment of Black History Month. In 1976, he felt that it was necessary for Americans to acknowledge the historic contributions of Black people, despite the barriers that they face, despite the fact that they have been marginalized throughout history. He wanted to make sure that there was at least 1 month, and it's the shortest month of the year, by the way, but 1 month where where people can celebrate their achievements. And it was a recognition of how far we've come from the days of slavery. We still suffer from the consequences and the legacies of slavery. And here in Alberta, as with the rest of Canada, we now dedicate the entire month of February to celebrate and honor the accomplishments of Black people, Black Canadians, Black Albertans, and the accomplishments that are so often overlooked in our society. So while I would argue that we ought to acknowledge and celebrate the strides that Black people have made, not just during February, the shortest month of the year, but all year round, we should be acknowledging those strides. We are truly thankful that at least a spotlight can be placed on us at least once, 1 month in the year, on people that have suffered a historical set of circumstances that led to the marginalization and repression of Black people across the globe, but especially here in North America. This is why I was delighted to accept your invitation, your kind invitation to speak at today's event at Lakeland College, my first visit to the college. And so far, so good. I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far. Now, in Canada, we sometimes are smug about the fact that overt racism is probably in the southern part of North America, more so than in Canada. And we tend to be a little bit smug about our claim that overt anti-Black racism witnessed south of our border is not really as bad up here in our multicultural and clearly more tolerant country. But we are frequently reminded from time to time, in not too subtle ways sometimes, that the scourge of racism, of hatred, and intolerance is still very much present within our society. And there are protest marches we've seen on television with tiki torches and other symbols of white nationalism, white supremacy. And they are simply not innocuous acts of peaceful resistance to the government, as sometimes some people like to put it that way, but rather there are decisions made by individuals to perpetuate a system of hierarchy in which whiteness is sometimes placed at the top of that hierarchy and Blackness at the bottom. So it's not surprising to me that as a nation and in our province, we have come a long way in advancing equality, mutual respect, and unity. Because the forces of xenoracism, the forces of inequality, the forces of white nationalism are still very much with us. We have to find a way to overcome those forces. I can tell you about a research program that I'm working on right now that looks at white supremacy and xenoracism in the Canadian Armed Forces. And we all know the Canadian Armed Forces is one of those institutions that is supposed to represent the best of what Canada is all about. We have military folks on peacekeeping missions around the world. We are known as a country that has supported the work of the armed forces around the globe. And the Department of National Defense has funded me to do a project that tries to understand the extent to which there's white supremacy and xenoracism in the military. And I know that some people weren't very happy when I took on this task because it was sort of unearthed something that we probably would like to forget, but it's present certainly within the military. And what I'm beginning to see, because we're still at the beginning of this research, but what I'm beginning to see is that there's not just individual cases of racism in the institution of the military, but rather there may be some structural problems associated with racism. In other words, it's deeply embedded in some of the structures of the military. And the fact that the leadership in the military wants me as an outsider to conduct that research, I think is very important. They could have done the study internally within the military, but instead they've asked someone from outside to come in and take a look, do a deep dive into this problem. So we'll see what the results will be, but the first reaction I'm getting from many people I've spoken to from the military and people associated with the military is that it is indeed a problem. It may not be as deep and as wide as some people think it is, but it's sufficiently a problem that we need to address it now. I think that we should not allow the retrogressive actions of a few people to dampen our celebration of the progress that has been made in our province and the country in advancing what they call the multicultural project of Canada. Canada is, after all, a diverse country. Patrick is here from former Democratic Republic of the Congo. We've got individuals here from India, from many parts of Africa. We've got Ukrainians here from Poland, from different parts of Europe, a whole bunch of people from the Caribbean and Latin America and so on. Canada has become a very diverse country, and that diversity ought to be reflected in the institutions of the country, including the military, including universities, including colleges. We should have a reflection of that diversity within our institutions. You know, someone said to me that we are all God's children. The oneness of humanity is a spiritual truth. And I have to say, I agree with that concept, that it's a spiritual truth, very much confirmed by theology, but it's also confirmed by science as well. Because science has noted that all of us, regardless of our color or ethnicity, we are more or less 99% the same. Right? It's a very small percentage of difference between us. A very, very minuscule percent of difference between us, regardless of what color you are, what skin color, what ethnicity, what background you might be from. So there's a scientific reason for us to want to celebrate the oneness of humanity, as opposed to the division that has been created because of a particular group of people who want to hold on to power. So let's not get too sidetracked by those people who promote prejudice and discrimination, especially during Black History Month. It's a good time for us to focus on the contributions that Black people have made and are making to better our society. And today I want to remember a person, an Albertan, in fact, who sort of exhibited the kind of person that we want to see among Black people. And that is the late Phil Fraser. Now, many of you may not know that name, Phil Fraser. But Phil Fraser embodied all that is great about Black history in this province. Phil Fraser was a mentor, a friend of mine, a high-achieving Black citizen of this country, born in Montreal. Phil made Alberta home. He excelled in everything he put his mind to do. And he was a radio personality, a television personality, a feature film producer, a television program director, a columnist, a book author. He's actually written a book that every single one of you should read, and that is How Blacks Build Canada. And why that's important is because we never hear that story being told. We never hear that story being told in the high school system, primary school system, even in the university system. It's never been told. But he's written this book that shows that Black people played a major role in the building of Canada, from its highways, to its bridges, to its railways, to the institutions of the country. Black people have played a major role. Now, he's had several awards and accolades during his time with us on this earth, and they're truly astonishing and demonstrate that all people, Black, white, Indigenous, can one day overcome the societal barriers that they face and achieve what some people might think to be impossible. I was talking to his wife recently, and now that he's passed away, it's been very sad for her, but I think she is comforted by the fact that so many people have benefited from Phil Fraser's existence on this earth. And I'm definitely one of them as well, and I want to thank him for that. Now, Phil organized and chaired the first Alberta Film Festival. And now today, we have the Alberta Film Festival as being a regular occurrence, but it took one person to be able to organize that. Phil Fraser did that. He produced award-winning films. He founded something called the Banff International Television Film Festival. I don't know if any of you have been to the Banff Film Festival before. He wrote impactful books along the one that I just mentioned, How Blacks Created Canada, Alberta's Camelot, Culture and Arts in the Lougheed years, Premier Lougheed years. He wrote the book called Running Uphill, a book about a famous Canadian, black Canadian, called Harry Jerome. And for his service in Canada and in Alberta, Phil Fraser was awarded the Order of Canada, the Order of Alberta, and the Alberta Centennial Medal, and the list goes on and on. Phil was truly a pillar of our society, and it's someone that we should look up to whenever we talk to our young people about what you can achieve in this country despite all the racism that might exist. So today on Black History Celebration, I want to remind folks of people like Phil Fraser who did not let systemic racism block his path to success, his path to accomplishments. And let us all strive to model his determination to forge a constructive path to racial justice, equality, inclusiveness, and leveling the playing field for all Canadians. And let's promote unity in diversity, not only in terms of the month of February, but all year round. I also want to acknowledge, and give me a second here. I also want to acknowledge an important element of our success in recent times, and to try to understand the extent to which we are living with the consequences of what's called slavery. I'm from a little island in the Caribbean called Barbados. I don't know if there are any other Caribbean people here. You're from Trinidad. And I spent 3 years in Trinidad, as it was pointed out by Patrick, as a director of the Institute of International Relations at the University of West Indies. So I know a little bit about Trinidad. My dad actually went to school in Trinidad, even although he's Barbadian. Went to school in Trinidad at a theological seminary in Trinidad. So I've learned a lot about Trinidad, and I've learned how to become a true Caribbean citizen, as opposed to just simply a Barbadian citizen. But Barbados, that little island, which is known to many people around the world as Little England. You ever heard that term used before? Little England to represent Barbados. It's kind of a paradise. And I'm not saying this just because I was born in Barbados, but I've lived away from Barbados for 46 years, so I think I can say this pretty objectively now. But Barbados is considered to be the paradise on earth, right? With its stunning white sandy beaches, its bleached coral reefs, its clear turquoise water, and many of you see this in tourist brochures around the globe. It appears to be the ideal place for vacation, and it is. There's a lot of Britain still present in Barbados. It used to have a statue of Lord Nelson at the center of the city in Bridgetown. And anyone who knows Lord Nelson would know that he lost an arm during the war. So there are two statues of Lord Nelson, one in London, one in Barbados. The one in Barbados was, I think, after the war. The one in London was before the war. So he has his full two arms in the one in London. The one in Barbados has one arm. But in any case, Lord Nelson's statue is just a representation of the extent to which Britain's legacy is being very firmly embedded in Barbados. Now, that monument has been taken down recently, and a lot of people would probably know that this has been going on across the globe, including in Canada, We've taken down statues of people who may have been linked in some way to slavery and to the what I call the crimes against humanity committed by slave owners. And it's been placed now in a museum where people can go to see it, but see it within a certain context of the history of how the country developed. Barbados has a parliamentary system that's based on the British Westminster model. It's very much like the British House of Lords and the British House of Assembly. You know, it's modeled after that same system. It has a little Big Ben. For those people who know London, you know the Big Ben in London. But Barbados has a replica of Big Ben in Bridgetown. Its school system is modeled after the British school system. There's an Anglican church that is the primary church in the country, the Church of England. And there are several churches all across the island that are Anglican churches. But despite this Caribbean island, the Portuguese named the island Barbados to represent what they consider to be the bearded fig tree. When the Portuguese came to Barbados, and so-called discovered Barbados, which is another term I have a problem with, because there were people already there before they came. They named the island Barbados. The majority of tourists who flock to this beautiful island of Barbados have very little knowledge of the impact that the country has had on what I call the legacy of slavery. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this just for a moment. There's a link between Barbados and Great Britain that is hard to wrap one's head around because Barbados became the microcosm for an experimentation with the ideology of white supremacy, believe it or not. We always think in terms of apartheid, right? When I use the term apartheid, you think first South Africa. Well, the apartheid idea, the ideology behind apartheid, the separation of whites and blacks, was experimented with by the British in Barbados, was actually made legal by something called the Black Slave Code in 1661. And it's the Black Slave Code that has created the conditions where people in North America, particularly in America, in the United States, are now suffering the consequences of the punishments that are listed in the Black Slave Code. So there's no wonder that in the police forces all across North America, but particularly in the United States, there has been a tremendous amount of anger exhibited against black people by the police forces, because systemically and structurally, the way the police forces operate is very much along the legal representation that comes from that Black Slave Code. The Black Slave Code, or the Black Slave Society, as Sir Hilary Beckles, who is now the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, he calls it the Black Slave Society. It was created to establish a racialized chattel society and a plantocracy that placed the predominantly black African population that was brought from Africa to the Caribbean in subjugation to a minority white British elite. And that Black Slave Society was the most systematically violent, brutal, and racially inhumane society of modernity. This is a quote from Hilary Beckles. Only the apartheid regime in South Africa comes close to sort of comparing with this particular Black Slave Society that was created as a microcosm for this experimentation in Barbados. And white supremacy was not just a theoretical issue or a rhetorical phrase in Barbados. It became entrenched through legislation. It became entrenched in the Black Slave Code in 1661. And this is way before the KKK was established in the United States. This is much longer than the kinds of white supremacy activity that we see celebrated in some parts of North America today. 1661 Comprehensive Slave Law, the Barbados Slave Code, was passed by the colonial English legislature. It was present in Barbados. It provided a legal basis for ensuring that Africans would be considered to be nothing more than real estate, than property, right? So Africans who were plucked from their homes in Africa and enslaved in the so-called New World, they would be, to the white British overlords, the generators of wealth from free labor of black people, free labor in the sugarcane fields and the cotton plantations of the region. And that money was siphoned off from the Caribbean to the center, Great Britain. And Britain became very, very rich as a result of this. So this is the legacy that's been left by that tiny little island of Barbados. The George Floyd moment, and I'm skipping around it, it might seem, but it has a link. The George Floyd moment in the United States is just another reminder that we still haven't quite overcome the despicable legacy of that black slave code. The modern day 21st century lynching, as some people call it, of this 46-year-old black man by 4 Minneapolis police officers was displayed on television for all the world to see. And as Floyd begged for his life, one white policeman knelt callously on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And that grown black man called out for his mother, who died 2 years earlier, repeating the phrase, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And that phrase has become like a refrain, not only in the United States, but all across the globe, representing the asphyxiation of our opportunities that black people around the world have had to endure for over 400 years. That precise moment when the life of George Floyd was drained out of him became a pivotal moment for many minorities and marginalized peoples, black, brown, indigenous peoples. It certainly left an indelible stain, I should say, on the consciousness of anyone with a heart, black or white. And it's easy to forget that white supremacy, which allowed the maltreatment, discrimination, incarceration, the punishment, and the lynching of black people in North America, it's very, very easy to forget that the roots of this came with the British egregious experimentation with African enslavement in Barbados. Americans in particular need to be reminded of that fact. Canadians also should be reminded of that fact. And we see black people continue today to be marginalized within our modern day society in North America, in Canada. It is important for us to understand that this innovation, this practice of racialized discrimination originated with the British in that tiny little island. So learning our history is important. It's an important step in recognizing the process by which a small group of people, rich, white, privileged societies in Britain, the United States, and Canada, benefited off the backs of an enslaved African labor. The high levels of white-owned wealth and black deaths is just amazing when you look at the history. It defined the slave plantations on the island of Barbados. It left a legacy that continues to this day in those countries that adopted the black slave society model that Barbados started with. You can see that model being perpetrated in places in the southern part of the United States. You can see that model being perpetrated even in Halifax, in Nova Scotia, in Canada. So Sir Henry Beckles, the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, makes a distinction between a society where slavery existed and a society in which slavery was at the center of the economic production and in which there was a master-slave relationship, a dominant-subdominant relationship that became the model for many of the social relations that we have established in North America. Now, Barbados have become that model that we want to sort of move away from. The little island, the little England, the island as it was called, became a project for what Great Britain was destined to become. It became a place where the first white supremacist thinking, which shaped social structures and economic relations in the colonies, took root. And the 1661 Slave Code simply codified or provided a legal justification for the practice of the rule of whiteness over an enslaved black majority. And this legal code was drafted 24 years before the French drafted their own similar code called the Code Noir in 1685. And it's well documented that Barbados became the last of the colonies to relinquish the legacy and the legal trappings of slavery. It resisted the idea. Even when the British in London decided to get rid of slavery, the white Barbadian farmers, the white owners of these plantations wanted to hold on to it. And in fact, guess what? When slavery was abolished, the British, in its appeasement for the black landowners in Barbados and other countries around the Caribbean, the British paid reparations to the black slave owners. They'd never thought about giving reparations to the black slaves who had worked for many, many years for free with their labor. So this is a kind of segregationist kind of approach that we've seen witnessed perpetuated over the years, even up to today. What is interesting is that the British, after creating the black slave model in Barbados, found ways to export that model to other colonies in its possession, those in southern United States of America, and the wealth gained by this slave society model on the richest colony in English America, which at the time was Barbados, because of sugarcane, revolutionized the way in which the economies operated in these parts of the world. England became one of the most successful countries in the world, and this path to prosperity created a purgatory for black people, as well as some landless whites, which in Barbados they call poor whites, because they don't have the power of the rich whites. And this purgatory was one of the ways in which there could be little chance of escape. Given the Barbados topography and the smallest of size, it was very little way for a slave to run away from the countries that were being caught. In any event, the slave code had institutionalized an early warning system to deter slaves from revolting. So this was one way that they could create legally a mechanism of punishment for those slaves that tried to run away, and anyone that sort of broke the codes of the country, particularly in interacting with white folks, could be actually punished as a result of the black slave code. Now, the punishment for recalcitrant slaves was exceedingly harsh. And I was reminded of a recent visit I paid to Barbados, to one of the plantations. And I saw some of the gruesome ways in which individual slaves were punished. They were punished, they were severely whipped in some cases. Any Negro man or woman who dared to act out in violence could be severely whipped. Some individuals could have their noses slit or their faces burned if they didn't follow according to the rules of the white plantation owners. Black people could be arrested and executed without trial. The punishment for mutiny or rebellion was most likely going to be death. All Africans were considered dangerous, and one can consider this treatment of blacks as the triumph of racism. Blacks were treated as less than humans. And I think this is important to recognize. This is a reason why we need to sort of fight against this notion of segregation and discrimination, because it treats individuals, the other, as less than human, as heathens, not fit to share intimate domestic spaces, social spaces with the white English. And indeed, in sexual relations, as they call it, carnal copulation between whites and blacks, that was also criminalized. In spite of that, there are some mixed folks, as you know, in the Caribbean, that came out of the relationship between some of the landowners and their slaves. So this is something that we need to place at the center of what we talk about when we think about the Black lived experience. Many of the things that Black people have had to endure over the years have turned them, in some ways, into individuals who would lash back at authority, would push back against authority, and so on. And that stems in large part from that legacy of slavery. I want to end with a quote from a famous Caribbean singer called Bob Marley. Bob Marley would sing, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets when we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? Because all I ever had, redemption song, redemption song, redemption song." This is by Bob Marley. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Wow. Please give it up one more time for Dr. Andy Wright. Now, we have Sudeen Davis. She has a few gifts to give you and our dignitaries. And then afterwards, we'll have our indigenous drum group will perform for about 4 minutes. And after that, we will have something for most of you who are here. Sudeen, please step right over.
Good afternoon. I have some presentations here to make, but just before I do that, just on behalf of all the Black students here at the college, we just want to express gratitude for all those who organized this event. We sometimes don't even understand or realize how important we are until stuff like this happens. I moved to Canada just a little bit over 2 years ago from Jamaica, and I had no idea how much the Black culture has influenced the rest of the world. I'm still shocked when I hear on the radio Sean Paul playing, or when I hear Afro beats playing. It's like, wow, I have no idea just how influential we are. And I just wanted to share 2 quotes, one by Janet Jackson and one by Maya Angelou. "In complete darkness, we are all the same. It is only your knowledge and wisdom that separates us. Don't let your eyes deceive you. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And so I just want to make these presentations. We have one for His Worship, the Mayor, for Dr. Alice, for Dr. Knight, and for Ben. And if you could just join us at the front here for just a wonderful photo op. Thank you.
this is what it looks like. And I want to give thanks to Chelsea from marketing team. Please put your hands together. She did a really good job. And after drummers, we will have some t-shirts for some of you who are here today. And now it's my pleasure to bring up Vera and Ruben to perform for us. Please give it up for Vera and Ruben.
Right in the mic? Right in the mic?
Yes.
All right, guys. This is a song composed by late Gordon McGilvery. I'm going to sing it today.
Once again to Vera and Ruben, everybody. Friends, this brings to the end the very formal part of our first ever keynote speech for Black History Month. And it's been a real pleasure having you here. To all who are guests or who are not students here, we will have some shirts for you before you leave. And if you're a student, and especially from Doreen's class, Doreen will have a way to distribute some shirts to you guys. Once again, please give it up for everyone for coming. Thank you very much. On Monday the 13th, that's next week Monday, we have a panel discussion, and it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to hear some Black stories. We have two panels. We have one for professionals, and we have another panel made up of students. And before all that, right here, we would enjoy some West African jollof rice and West Indian jerk chicken, some plantain, and a bunch of really interesting food. And then we'll have some wonderful conversations. However, you need to RSVP before you would get through the bouncer at the top. So please make sure you do that. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Nine. Thank you for coming. Alice, thank you very much for your leadership here. Mr. Mayor, thank you. That was wonderful. And indeed, to all of you for coming. Black History Month, ours to tell. Thank you so much.